About 5 or 6 years ago, when I was in high school, I was taking a regular gym class. We would do all kinds of things and would often play games. I remember this one day in the spring, all the snow had melted and the weather had just become warm enough and nice enough for us to be able to go outside. We went out to the back part of the school where the football fields and things were. Behind them, they had an extra football practice field and then a large woods going off the school property. Once we got there, the teacher told us we were going to play Capture the Flag. If you don't know what that is, it's a game where two teams stand on the other sides of a line and have a flag that they guard. Your goal is to try to get to the flag and bring it to your side without being touched, or else you're out. We got into the two teams, and I had one of my good friends, Jake, on my team. Me and Jake are both really competitive, and we came up with a great plan to get the other team's flag. There was a decent amount of people in our class, and we were playing on the field that was next to the woods, so we planned to sneak off into the woods and then make our way through the woods to the other team's side, then pop out right next to their flag. We waited until the teacher wasn't looking, and then we went off into the woods. We had to go sort of downhill once we got into the woods, and then we went kind of deep into there. We did this so that nobody could see or hear us. We walked for probably about a minute to where it was a lot thicker woods. Then we started making our way down. We were trying to be as quiet as we could when Jake tapped me on the shoulder. I looked at him, and he pointed down between some trees about 40 feet away. There was a man standing there. It was really strange to see a man out there, because there was no paths going through this particular woods. It was also very dense and had a long ways before you were out of it. We both looked at the man for several seconds until he looked directly at us. We were trying to figure out what he was doing out there. He had glasses on and a beard and looked to be about roughly 30 years old. After us both staring at each other for an uncomfortable amount of time, the man smiled and then started waving us over to him. It wasn't really a friendly smile, however. It was more of a creepy one. Me and Jake decided to just keep walking and ignore the man. As soon as we walked away, though, we heard the man start to walk at a fast pace through the woods in our direction. We didn't stop to look back, and instead turned to just go as quickly as we could back to where our class was. The way that the man was going towards us kind of creeped us out, and we didn't really care about the Capture the Flag game anymore. We knew once we got back to the rest of the class, the man wouldn't follow us there, whoever he was. We finally made it back to the class, and the man didn't come out. We kept our eye on the edge of the woods, though, just to see if he would. The rest of the class went by, and we never saw the man again. After class was over, I went to my next period, which was history. Shortly after class started, though, our school went into a lockdown. All of the teachers had to lock their doors, and nobody was allowed to leave. They wouldn't tell us why the school was locked down, and it lasted for about an hour before it finally ended. I finally was able to figure out the reason for the lockdown after some time, and I got word that a man had robbed a bank on the other side of town the previous night and was seen on school property. It turned out to be the same man that we saw in the woods. It was really creepy to look back at that. And when I do, I always wonder what the man wanted when he was waving us over to him. This story takes place back when I went to high school. At the time, I was an 18-year-old girl and a senior. I was taking a weightlifting class, which I didn't mind because I played volleyball. It was my third hour class, and I went to it one day to see that we had a substitute teacher. I had never seen this man before, and from the first second I saw him, I immediately got the creeps. I try not to be a judgmental person, but I couldn't help that something just seemed off the first time I saw him. He looked to be about 30 to 40 and was balding with a slight beard. When the bell rang, he announced to us that he was the substitute teacher for the day, and then he made some sort of joke which nobody laughed at. Then he started taking attendance, going down the line that we always stood in. He made some comments to several people, joking with them, and when he got to me, He told me I smelled good in a way that I found slightly inappropriate. After that, he continued to walk down the line. We went on with our normal lift for the daily workout, and I overheard some kids making comments about how they thought the guy seemed weird and wondered how the school found him to teach today. He pretty much stayed out of our way during the workout, however, and sat in the corner. When class was over, we all left. The rest of the school day was very normal. But as I drove home that day, when I was pulling out of the school parking lot, I noticed a car pull out after me and saw that the substitute teacher guy was driving. I found this especially odd because I was leaving from the student parking lot and there was a separate parking lot just for the staff. I told myself maybe he didn't know where to park being a substitute and drove the rest of the way home listening to music and kind of zoning out. But when I pulled into my quiet street, I noticed he was still following me. I had to do a double take, and when I pulled into my driveway, he drove on by. I found it strange and was now kind of creeped out. My street had a dead end on it just about a quarter mile up the road. Sure enough, after I got inside my house, I looked out my front window and saw him driving back the other way. I immediately told my mother, but she said it was likely just a coincidence and to not worry. But later that night, as I was about to go to bed, I walked through the living room where my mother was watching TV. When I did, I saw a car drive by, but then slow down in front of our house and nearly come to a stop. When I looked closer, I noticed it to be the same car the creepy sub had. I immediately told my mom again, and after she took a look, she called in my dad, who stormed out of the house yelling, and the car immediately drove away. We ended up reporting everything to the school the next day. I'm not sure exactly what happened to the guy, but I was told I wouldn't have to worry about him anymore. Many years ago, when I was in high school, my favorite class period was always gym class. Being a high school guy, I played on the basketball team, so gym class was a very easy subject for me. I remember back when we'd often play dodgeball, which is what we were doing on this particular day. It was pretty early in the morning. I think gym was my first or second class of the day. Our school was very old, and the gym was sort of old-fashioned. We had a dodgeball game going on when one of my friends threw a dodgeball at me and missed. It went out the doorway of the gym and into the back corner to a little hallway with a storage closet. That was the back exit to the gym, which really wasn't used anymore because it was a dead end. All that was really back there was a closet. I went through the door and went around to the corner, and then went into the storage closet where the ball had ended up. When I got inside, I saw that most of the lights were off and it was pretty dark. It was filled with old equipment, that most of it was no longer used. I looked around for the ball and then found it. It had rolled only a few feet in. Then, as I was grabbing the ball, I heard a noise come from the back of the closet. I looked and saw an older woman peeking out from behind a large box and looking at me. She had long, messy, blackish gray hair, and she looked to be insane. It really startled me, and also creeped me out at the same time. I just took the ball and then ran back to class. I told my friend Tom about what I had seen. He seemed interested, so we both decided to go back to the closet together. We walked over and then peeked inside. We didn't see her this time, though. I figured she was hiding behind the box, so Tom reached for the light switch and turned it on. He then walked straight for the box she had been hiding behind. But when he looked behind it, she was gone. We both looked all the way around the room and even went out into the hallway and looked around, but they were both completely empty. There was no other ways to leave this area of the school, and I don't know how the lady could have possibly left. To this day, I still think about it and wonder what happened.